RL Grime is one of the most mysterious yet renowned producers in the modern electronic music scene. He's known for being one of the main pioneers of the EDM trap era, and he's been making enormous contributions to the genre since those early days. In this video, we'll be taking a deep dive into RL Grime's backstory, dissecting each phase of his journey in order to better understand how he got to where he is today. Henry Steinway was born in 1991 in Los Angeles, California, which is where he spent his entire childhood. One fun little fact about him is that he shares the same name as one of the co-founders of the famous Steinway pianos, who is also named Henry Steinway. Both of his parents work in creative fields, as his mom is a fine art photographer and his dad is an architect. Like many kids, he also enjoyed playing video games growing up, as he's known to be a big fan of NBA 2K and FIFA, with the Lakers and Arsenal being his favorite teams to play with in each game. He's also apparently really good at Fortnite, which I'll touch on more later in the video. He was a big fan of the R.L. Stine book series called Goosebumps, as well as the TV show Are You Afraid of the Dark? Obviously, he also enjoyed music, especially 90s rap, as 50 Cent's album Get Rich or Die Tryin' had a big impact on him, with his favorite song from the album being Many Men.
I think 50 Cent had a big impact on me when I first got Get Rich or Die Tryin'. I must have been in my 5th or 6th grade, but I would listen to that from front to back, and I was just like fully obsessed with that sound. I don't know, and then I mean obviously I got into like Wu-Tang and like Tribe Called Quest and all the kind of 90s rap stuff.
Right around the time that he discovered that album, he attended a Spice Girls concert, which was his first concert ever. In high school, he played on the varsity golf team, and he also began learning how to produce using Reason as his digital audio workstation of choice, though he now uses Reason and Ableton in conjunction with one another.
Well, I started out, I've been producing since like 9th grade, but it's never been a serious thing. It's always been a hobby for me.
While in high school, he started to go to EDM shows and festivals such as EDC, which he attended for the first time in 2007, back when it was held in Los Angeles.
Well, I grew up in LA, so I mean that's obviously where the scene was thriving in high school. So like all my friends would listen to dance music, and we'd go to like Hard and all the massive things, like and be idiots in high school and go
EDC.
Exactly, yeah, and do shit like that.
Awesome.
And so naturally, like I wanted to be involved. So.
At that point in his life, he had fully fallen in love with dance music and already had a couple of years of production experience under his belt, so he decided to start his own project called Clockwork. Clockwork was focused on big room house, and while the earliest Clockwork releases I could find were from 2011, it is possible that he was releasing music before that. In 2009, he graduated from high school and attended Northeastern University in Boston for his freshman year, where he was majoring in music business. Northeastern is the same school that Big Wild attended, and they were actually both there at the same time. If you want to learn more about Big Wild, be sure to check out my documentary on him. Anyways, towards the end of Henry's freshman year at Northeastern, he felt that the music scene in Boston was lacking, so he wanted to transfer. Plus, it was tough for him being in Boston as a Lakers fan, as this was around the time that both the Lakers and the Celtics were NBA powerhouses, and he said that everyone in his dorm hated him for being a Lakers fan. Both teams actually played each other in the championship at the end of his freshman year, with Los Angeles ultimately coming out with a win in Game 7, and it's considered one of the greatest NBA championship series of all time.
The Lakers repeat back-to-back titles. The LA Lakers, the 2010 NBA champions.
Henry had his sights set on New York City, so he transferred to NYU to begin his sophomore year, which was a decision that had a dramatic impact on the direction of his life moving forward. Once he was at NYU, he began to take producing more seriously, as he had just treated it as a hobby up until that point. He started releasing music on labels under his Clockwork alias, and he even became the youngest artist to ever release on Steve Aoki's record label, Dim Mak, when he released his Squad Up EP.
Yeah, I just released a new EP called Squad Up on Dim Mak Records, and there were 3 original tracks and 3 remixes of each respective track by Dylan Francis, Toro Toro, and Botneck. And it just came out 2 days ago. We have a couple tracks in the Beatport Top 100 already, so it's very exciting.
As more DJs played out his tracks, he gained popularity, which allowed him to start landing some gigs.
8 or 9 months ago, I started taking it really seriously and actually making songs that, you know, I can play out. And then I realized that artists that I'm really into were starting to play my own tracks out, and that was kind of a sign for me to start taking this a lot more seriously. And I mean, for example, Keith from Autoerotic, he's like a big reason why I had this EP on Dim-Mak, because he hit me up like out of nowhere and said he was playing Squad Up, and then he introduced me to Steve, and from there, I mean, it all just happened. So.
Since Clockwork was strictly a big room house project, he decided to create a side project in order to pursue other creative outlets, which was the birth of RL Grime.
Right when I moved to New York, I started getting really into like James Blake and like Bach Bach and all the Night Slugs things, and you know, I was super into that. It was sort of me listening to all that and wanting to bring more of like the hip hop side of me also, and just sort of like accumulate that all together.
As I mentioned earlier, he was a big fan of R.L. Stine, which was the inspiration for the name RL Grime.
I remember when you sent me those demos, like the house music, you're also like, I also do this other thing. It's like this UK, it wasn't even a formed thing. But I saw the emails, you're like, I do this other thing. It's like called RL Grime. It was like edits.
Yeah.
And it was stuff like The Mercy, I think, was before Mercy you did.
Yeah.
And you were like, this is a new thing I had. And I wasn't even really sure what trap was yet either, because I was still just learning and creating like the culture at Madison for the club music. And then you were the first guy to send me these like slowed down records. I was like, these are kind of cool to play.
Somewhere around this time, he befriended some fellow LA natives who were also living in New York, a group of friends who ran a collective called We Did It.
I had heard about them because Shlomo and Nick Mellon, the guy who runs it with Shlomo, they both went to a high school near me in LA. They're both a year older than me. But we all, at some point, just all moved to New York and became friends. And that was like around the same time that I was making the RL Grime shit. And so I was just playing it for them like in my apartment or whatever, and they fucked with it and were like, you want to just like hop on board or whatever. So we've been, you know, best friends ever since. Like all the people that I met in New York basically became like my group of friends. And it's all people that make music, so I feel super lucky to have those people in my life.
His friends from We Did It were very supportive of the RL Grime side project, and he released 2 EPs through the collective, the first of which was the Clips EP in 2011. The second EP came a year later in 2012, called the Grapes EP, though neither of those EPs got too much attention. However, not much later, he and Salva, who is a fellow We Did It member, released their remix of Kanye West's song Mercy, which garnered a lot of attention.
I did like an EP or two with We Did It that was just like very under the radar and just kind of weird, cool stuff. And then did the Mercy remix, and that was when it was like, took another step.
It kind of was, I feel like the Mercy remix, along with maybe like the original Dawn remix, were like the 2 records that like began that whole scene.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, instrumental or, you know, records that are just heavy, that could work.
As RL Grime started to get noticed during his junior year of college, he started getting a bunch of gig offers, so he was left with a choice. He could decline the offers and finish school, or drop out and see where the music would take him. He decided that dropping out would be the best course of action, which he spoke about in an interview saying, "When there's money involved and you can see your future in a Vegas residency, you see that over the course of 6 months, you're going to be making a decent amount of money and you can work on music. It just made sense." And like I said, both of my parents are creatives, and when they were in college, they both took a year off from school, so they were fully supportive. After dropping out, he started playing more shows, balancing Clockwork with RL Grime. As Clockwork, he remained focused on EDM, while RL Grime had a wider appeal, which gave him unique opportunities, such as opening for Kendrick Lamar in Los Angeles after he had just dropped his breakout album, Good Kid, Mad City. He continued to release music and play shows under both aliases, but he was becoming less and less fond of Clockwork as time went on.
I kind of was seeing a shift in that like big room house stuff, and how it was just like sort of becoming corny to me, and like just I wasn't inspired and didn't want to make it really anymore.
However, the RL Grime project still wasn't where it needed to be in order for Henry to ditch Clockwork just yet, so he continued to pour more energy into the RL Grime project. That first year after dropping out of college, he dropped some major RL Grime tracks, like his remix of Shlomo's The Way You Do, as well as one of his OG originals, Trap on Acid. In October of that year, he debuted the first of his famous Halloween mixes, which featured a voiceover intro from none other than R.L. Stine, who has been very supportive of RL Grime.
Happy Halloween, everyone. This is R.L. Stine. Now listen to something really scary. This music mix from RL Grime.
The Halloween mixes have gone on to be a staple of his brand, releasing one every year since 2012, with voiceovers from various celebrities on every mix. Some of the celebrities that have made appearances on the Halloween mixes over the years include Guy Fieri, Hannibal Buress, Tony Hawk, Shaquille O'Neal, and more. He also continued to release under Clockwork in 2012, including a collab with Diplo called BBBS, which released on Diplo's record label, Mad Decent.
We had a release together on Mad Decent.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of the song? Was BSS?
It was BBBS. I think it was like the vocal drop was like something like that. But yeah, that was like a big thing for me because I mean I grew up loving Mad Decent, obviously, and like I think, you know, obviously putting a record out on a label that you love when you're younger is like a big deal for sure.
The following year in 2013, RL Grime made waves once again when he released his remix of Chief Keef's Love Sosa, which quickly brought in a bunch of new fans. He quickly followed up with the release of his High Beams EP on Fool's Gold, which is A-Trak's record label. He also released a collab with Bauer, the artist who made the viral 2012 track Harlem Shake. Their collab is called Infinite Daps, and they followed up with the Infinite Daps tour, which featured RL Grime going back-to-back with Bauer.
Bauer and I are going back-to-back. I think it's 8 or 9 dates. And it's me, Bauer, Ryan Hemsworth, and Jimmy Stack, who are all super good friends of mine. So I think we have a tour bus, which is going to be really interesting. But yeah, that's been in the works for a while. We've had some other guys that we wanted to bring on that fell through, and then, you know, we brought some other guys, but it all finally came together, and it's a pretty amazing package, I think.
That same year, he was reaching his breaking point with Clockwork, and his feelings of dissatisfaction with the project reached their pinnacle while playing a Clockwork set at EDC in 2013.
I remember it like very specifically. It was EDC maybe 2013 or 2014, and I was playing a Clockwork set, and I had like a full panic attack when I was playing because I was like, oh shit, like I just hate this music, like I don't want to play this. And I remember right after I finished the set, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I didn't really know what to do because I had this fan base of people that knew me for that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, like, I was trying to keep RL Grime like separate and not have people know.
Yeah, I remember that. You were like, this is my other, it was like you were kind of keeping it on the DL.
I was trying to, but
Yeah.
like, you know.
It's funny how serious we took those things back then. And in
Right.
retrospect, we were like, wow, you could do whatever you want.
It didn't matter,
Yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
After ditching the Clockwork alias to fully focus on RL Grime, he had his sights set on establishing himself as a true artist rather than someone who mostly just releases remixes and bootlegs on SoundCloud. He spoke about this in an interview by saying, "That's ultimately what I wanted, to sort of have a level of artistry to it and to really put time and effort into how you roll out music and how you put it out and present it to the world." His solution was to release an album, so the following year in 2014, he released his debut album called Void on We Did It Records. He worked with visual artist David Rudnick for the visuals, with the idea of creating a deep sea-like world for the album to live in. The deep sea theme is probably most prevalent in the track called Julia, as it contains a sample he found on the List of Unexplained Sounds Wikipedia page, and that sound is named Julia, which is where he got the name for the track. Much later after the release, the Julia sound was identified as a 1999 recording from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and it's believed to be an iceberg that had run aground off of Antarctica. As far as the rest of the album, RL Grime was able to pull in some big name features due to the success of his previous remixes, most notably being Boys Noise and Big Sean. The album was successful and did exactly what he wanted it to do, as it helped establish him as a true artist to be taken seriously. The same year of the album release, he teamed up with Whatsonot to release Tell Me, which became one of the biggest trap hits of the year. With the success of his 2013 releases paired with the momentum from his new album and collab with Whatsonot, RL Grime had become a hot ticket, so he toured non-stop for the following 2 years.
I was touring it for like 2 years, pretty much.
What was that tour like?
I mean, it was good. It was grueling though, for sure. I mean, I definitely got a taste of like what it's like probably for you to be doing 200 shows plus a year, you know?
By 2016, he had 2 new singles to release, the first of which is called Aurora, which was released on We Did It Records. The second single that year was a collab with Whatsonot and Skrillex called Waiting. To promote the release of the single, they launched a website called w8-ing.com, which contained a 1-minute preview of the song alongside a video showing a phone number. When the phone number was called, fans got to hear the full song before it was released. After the release, it became one of the biggest tracks of the year and is now considered to be an all-time trap classic.
This is a certified hood classic.
Behind the scenes, RL Grime was working on his second album, but he was struggling with depression, which made things difficult. He opened up about this after the release of his second album, which we'll get to in a bit. Even though he was struggling with depression, he was still able to make yet another huge track that was released in 2017, a collab with fellow LA native Miguel called Stay For It.
It feels like a perfect like marriage of like both of our sounds, you know?
Myself, 'cause I can't go much longer. Yeah, I just need your help, but I'm getting stronger.
That same year, he also released 2 singles from his upcoming album, Reams and Era. By 2018, his album was ready for release, and on July 27th, 2018, he released it for the world to hear, and it was his final release on We Did It Records. Just like Void, the album boasts star-studded collaborations with artists like Chief Keef, Ty Dolla $ign, Jeremiah, Tory Lanez, and more. Upon the release of the album, he opened up about the depression he had been struggling with from 2015 to 2017 by saying, "The music I was making for Nova reflected that. It felt melancholy, but still hopeful. This album was made during a period of my life of growing up and learning how to deal with sadness and overwhelming stress. I wanted my music to emerge from that darkness, but not to abandon the feelings that had shaped the project in the first place. I wanted to take the sounds that before seemed to emanate from somewhere down below and bring them up into the skies and into space. I wanted to find that same sort of power in something light, ethereal, but strong." After the release of Nova, RL Grime decided that it was time to launch his own record label, and in February of 2019, he launched Sable Valley Records. The label is now one of the most prestigious in all of trap music, and it serves as a home to some of the biggest artists in the genre, like ISOXO, John Casey, Jewels, and more. As far as RL Grime releases for the rest of 2019, he released 2 tracks. The first is a remix of the massive G Jones track, In Your Head, which was followed by Formula, a collaboration with Jewels, one of Sable Valley's many flagship artists. Okay, so remember how at the beginning of the video I said that Henry is pretty good at Fortnite? Well, in both June and July of 2019, he competed in 2 different Fortnite Pro-Am tournaments alongside professional gamer Airwalks, winning $1 million for charity each time.
Your 2019 Pro-Am champions, the 2-time Airwalk and RL Grime!
The following year in 2020 was a quiet year for RL Grime, but even though COVID shook things up, Sable Valley was going full steam ahead. And by 2021, he was back with his second ever release on Sable Valley called Stinger, a collab with ISOXO, who was quickly becoming one of the hottest artists in trap. He followed that up with a drum and bass collab with his longtime friend Bauer called Fall Away. He also had a special event in store for fans that year. After 9 years of Halloween mixes, he decided it was time to turn the tradition into a live event, taking place on Halloween at the Hollywood Palladium. In 2022, he released 2 more collabs on Sable Valley. The first was Silo with Hex Cougar featuring Fucking Sid, followed by Renegade with the EDM legends Nero. The second Halloween show occurred once again in Los Angeles that year, this time being called Halloween Dead Space, featuring a lineup of Sable Valley All-Stars like Hex Cougar, ISOXO, and more. In 2023, RL Grime's long-awaited third album was ready to be released, and he began the rollout by releasing the first single called Pour Your Heart Out. He followed up with a trickle of releases, including Breach, which was a collab with Jewels, followed by Around Me, and a collab with Montel 2099 featuring Emmeline called Borderline. On September 15th of 2023, the full album called Play was released. The album is broken into 3 sections called Apex, Grid, and Rush. Each section has its own vibe, with Apex holding all of the classic RL Grime style bangers. Grid is all about lyricism and melodies, and Rush, in Henry's own words, is the deep house, techno, breaks kind of thing, which I've always been into. Upon the release of the album, he took to Instagram to vent about his struggles to finish the album. The post says, "Currently sitting in a park reflecting on the last few years and wanted to get some random thoughts down. From feeling completely stuck and sitting at home with no drive to make music whatsoever, to where we are today, hours away from releasing my third album, is something I'm still trying to wrap my head around. It's hard not to get caught up in the relentless and ever-impending content/virality race of the current music industry. For a long time, it weighed down on my creativity and ultimately pushed me away from engaging at all with social media. Thankfully, this album process set me on a trajectory to regain my confidence not only as a producer, but more importantly, as a person. I want to extend an eternal thank you to everyone involved in this project. Collaboration is such a beautiful and rewarding process, and it is still one of my favorite aspects of making music. I want to also shout out everyone who has released music with Sable Valley over the last 4 years. It has been my honor and privilege to release your work, and it continues to be a process I care deeply about. This record label has given me hope and inspiration when I needed it most. Anyways, I'm just so grateful to have gotten to this point, and I'm so proud of this album. Really can't wait for everyone to hear it in full. Hope to see you out there somewhere soon. Let's rip. To accompany the album release, new merch was posted to RL Grime's online store, with one of the albums being a pack of 4 SD cards. 3 of the SD cards were dedicated to Apex, Grid, and Rush, with the 4th being labeled as extras. When fans received their SD cards in the mail, they were disappointed to find out that the 4th SD card was blank. Most fans assumed the extras meant unreleased or bonus tracks rather than just an extra blank SD card. RL Grime heard the disgruntled fans and decided to drop 7 unreleased tracks and edits to make up for the miscommunication. Following the release of Play, he went on a 14-date North American tour to show off the music in its fullest form. The 4th show of the tour took place on Halloween at Mission Ballroom in Denver, which was technically the 3rd year of his Halloween shows. At Ultra Music Festival this year, he went back-to-back with one of the most hyped dance artists in the scene right now, Knock 2, and the set absolutely went off. As far as what the next step is for RL Grime in his career, we'll just have to wait and see. He's a quality over quantity type of guy, so it can be expected that his future releases will be few and far between. It's impressive to see the career he has built following that strategy, as he has a relatively small catalog for an electronic artist who has been in the limelight for over a decade. Whenever he releases new music, you can be sure that you'll hear about it, as he refuses to release anything that he would consider subpar. He has publicly said that he's highly critical of himself and usually makes around 100 different versions of each track before they're ready to be released, and that strategy has clearly served him well. For anyone who's been following the trap scene for a long time, you know that trap hasn't exactly been in the spotlight in recent years. However, with Sable Valley helping promising up-and-comers like ISOXO and Jewels, as well as RL Grime's consistent innovation leading the charge, I think it's fair to say that the future of the trap scene is in good hands.